I got married before I got out of high school, and my husband was killed by a police officer shortly after we got married, and that was going on in Battle Creek at that time. I was just young and afraid, kind of. I was only 19.
We didn't have the teachers, we didn't have the fire department, we didn't have the police department with black folks identifying that we could see. You see what I mean? We didn't have the role models that we could emulate, that would be our mentors. We didn't have that. Man, when I went to school, I only had 2 black teachers, and none of them principals. And we finally got one. Mattie West was, I think, our first black principal that we had. And then, but teachers, we didn't see black. There were substitute teachers, but we didn't see many black teachers. We see a lot of substitute teachers. Clark Valentine started substitute teaching. Mr. Patton became a principal and things like that at Lincoln School. But he first started out as a substitute teaching until he came up to be a regular teacher. But black teachers in the classroom in the 60s, they started recruiting a whole lot more black teachers in that era. That's where Tim Elliott and all of them come along.
I think that what was happening was there was some uprisings where kids were not feeling a part of the growth of the community in the city. So they went out and recruited some teachers to add diversity to the school system.
I was attending Hampton Institute, Hampton University now, and recruiters from Battle Creek came looking for teachers to work in Battle Creek. And I personally thought Battle Creek was a made-up place on a cereal box, but it sounded interesting and the offer sounded worthwhile, so I decided I would try Battle Creek for a couple of years. My goal was to get to California, but I thought, well, this is about halfway away from home. I can still get back and forth, so Battle Creek was it. Needless to say, I never made it to California.
When I was I think right after I got out of high school, Mr. Boards, William Boards, was the advisor for the NAACP Young Adult Council. And I got involved with it. I don't remember why or how, but my mother was always kind of an activist. She was involved, always a member of the NAACP, but she passed away when I was 24. But Mr. Boards recruited a lot of us to be involved with the youth NAACP. We would go to the conventions and that sort of thing down in Detroit and over in Grand Rapids and so forth. It just gave us something to do, and I looked forward to it. And when Dr. King was assassinated, I remember we all received phone calls, saying that Dr. King had been assassinated. And of course, we wanted to protest about that.
MLK came to Battle Creek on a visit early on, and that's where our church leaders were there to greet him. There was a big article in the paper at that time. Joyful to be in his company because, already he had started his reputation. And this was diversity, because as I recall, it was one of our churches on Capitol, and there was a mix of people, and everybody was joyful and wanting to hear what he had to say and be around and shake his hand. So it was a very wonderful time.
When the tension really escalated was during the death of Martin Luther King, which really took the city into another stage.
We all met, must have been at his house or somewhere, but we went downtown, Battle Creek, Jackson Street and Capitol. Jackson was a through street then, all the way through. And of course, Capitol. Early that morning or that following morning, and to protest. And we just was going to stop traffic and not allow people to go through. And we did. For a moment, I mean, it didn't last long because before we knew it, the police all came and we all got arrested. And they took us all to jail. And we were there overnight. And the next day we were arraigned, but we were all released after that. But we didn't want to break windows and uproar like that because we wanted to follow the teaching of Dr. King, which was nonviolence. And that's what Mr. Boards told us, we're not going down here to destroy anything. We're just going to protest quietly. And we thought the best way to do that, or he thought the best way to do that, was to obstruct traffic.
So the NAACP was ran by McGee and Mr. Boards. And so we were the youth group kind of called the Ricondos. And so we would, time to time, when they give us the news, but we weren't out only a few times marching the streets. Once when there was a concert that came to Battle Creek, and then they got loud and folks didn't like it and called the police. And when you call the police, they take things over. And so there were a few batons on some of our brothers' heads, and some of them were damaged. So we did protest that. But outside of that, we listened to Mr. Boards and to Mr. McGee, and we were checking facts. We were doing our research, and so Battle Creek did not blow up as some other cities did.
The fact that we were following the teachings of Dr. King with our group, Mr. Boards, stressed to us nonviolent, don't destroy anything, protest quietly. And I'm sure that was said to other young people. And I never thought about going downtown, breaking up the stores or stealing or doing anything like that. We just weren't taught to do that. And I'm not saying other cities were taught to do that, but our city was, it never happened. It never happened.
Vice Mayor Boards I think he was a part of that, but he became our vice mayor. He became our president of the NAACP at that time, back in the 60s, and he was powerful too. And he got the Black Ricondos got started. First was the Ricondos out of New York. They were white Ricondos. And so we became the Black Ricondos because we were black, but we followed some of the guidelines of those folks up in New York. And what they did was they were liaisons between the police department and the community. We want to try to get our folks so they wouldn't get arrested. We want to teach them how to guard themselves from being beaten. We try to get those folks educated within the schools. And if they're getting kicked out of school, we would go to the Black Ricondos to keep us in school. And then we had, and Vice Mayor Boards was the head of all that Black Ricondo situation, but then James L. Jones was the president. Tim Laws was right there. He might have been vice president, Ronnie Richardson. We had a lot of Black Ricondos here in uniform that would take and help the younger generation get through a lot of the situations that took place within the 60s. When you talk about the riots and all that, who kept it from defusing, kept it from exploding? These guys did.
We don't have the teachers of color that we should have, considering the percent of young people in high school. And it's in research that our young people will do a lot better when they see themselves in leadership. They see their teachers. I have to admit, though, that during my time, I had some wonderful teachers. They saw past color, and they judged you on what you could do. As a matter of fact, they encouraged me to do the best I could do. And I didn't have any black teachers, so, you listen to them, and we did. We did do respect, because when you went home, if you had a letter or call from the school to your family, you were in major trouble unless you had a good excuse. Your parents would be up there, even then, talking, what happened and why is this? So I think a small town, I never left, small towns are knit, tight. They have some of the troubles, but still everybody works together. And I think this is what has been so wonderful about Battle Creek. Even though not everything went as should have, they still work together, as they do today. They still work together.
Now, the churches have always been our place, our safe place. When I first came to Battle Creek, I was not involved in a church. I was close friends with a gentleman named Simon Chandler, who was a magnificent musician. He played at several different churches, and I just went along with him because, of course, he was transportation. So my connection to the churches initially was a little peripheral, so I would just come in on Sundays wherever it was he was playing. But before long, he was connected to Second Baptist, and so was I. And Second Baptist became, I thought, a real center of leadership for the black community at that time. Second Baptist and Mount Zion and Macedonia were led by African American men of vision, I thought. Yeah, and so that helped. At Second Baptist, when I started, Gilbert Jackson was the minister there. I think at Mount Zion it was Louis T. Perry, and at Macedonia it might have been Earl Young, and then William Young. So those were the movers and the shakers that I was aware of at that time. I lived in a portion of Philadelphia that would have been, now it's called urban, it would have been disadvantaged at that time. And to come here and see the neighborhoods and yards and people have their own grass and trees, it was just, wow. And this is not the rich part of town. I remember we came through, they took us by Parkway Manor, and they were explaining, this is the projects. And I'm thinking, what? These look like townhouses. What do you mean projects? So it was a big difference for me. And another difference for me was to come here and find that there were adults who were actively involved in baseball and softball games. You get off work and go play baseball? What? That was not my experience from Philly. You know, people go to work, you go home, and that's about it. But this was a different place for me. Yeah.
We had power figures who diffused things quickly by talking. We had more venues open up to us. That's another thing. White started opening venues up to us. We had schools open for basketball programs. We had a few more things going on. We had recreational programs being where blacks didn't have to be in the streets. They could be doing it the youth building, playing on a league team. And we had all that going, and that helped. And we had powerful people who took you under their wings and told you about, hey, let's do it this way, let's do it that way. And kids listen. And the girls never got out of whack. The girls kind of stayed, they kind of watched and helped pave the way. They kind of diffused a lot of things too by being strong and caring about their man part, their family members, and helping. Women helped. They were smart. Well, the guys needed something on English. They needed to learn how to spell. This was the ladies, the girls came in to help with the educational part of it, so you can pass and get a B instead of a D. They helped a lot. And then a lot of them became educators.
And the thing about Battle Creek's closeness, the closeness of families, the thing that we already had in place, leaders, Boards and McGee and Sherrod and even Valentine, so that there'd already been a pattern of talking, sitting down, looking at facts before things kind of got out of hand. And so the person from Detroit said, everything in Detroit was, of course, they're larger. When you're larger, it's more volatile. And the fact that they were not connected. Everybody was in their separate spots. And so when you got angry, it just went from here to there, which didn't happen in Battle Creek.
It's the leaders that kept us grounded, you know. So I think that's why. We just had good leadership at that time.